What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I will take you guys through the top 1000 team selection, and this episode is going to revolve around Game Week 7. So firstly, as we usually do, I'm going to take you guys through the top 1000 template, or more basically, the most highly owned players within the top 1000 managers before I predict what transfers these managers will make going into the upcoming game week. We're then going to finally look at the team selection for the upcoming Game Week 7 with that transfer taken into account to see how good that team is looking compared to our own team selections for Game Week 7. So as I always say, if that's something you guys are interested in, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So firstly, I just wanted to give you guys a reminder about the Champions League, the Europa League, and the Conference League taking place on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I don't know about you guys, but the one fixture that I definitely will be keeping my eye on is going to be Chelsea versus Juventus, just because I'm really interested to see who makes the starting 11 for Chelsea, and also who gets taken off earlier into that fixture. I think it's going to give us a lot of information into the potential team selection going into Game Week 7 for Chelsea, but as always, this applies to every single team playing European football. So please keep your guys' eyes on playing time as well as injury news, and then you'll be perfectly fine for the upcoming game week. So going on to the first portion of this top 1000 team selection video, as I always do, I went over to Fantasy Football Fix and searched for the top 1000 template that they nicely present to us in a team selection according to highest ownership. So starting off with the bench, because that's the most boring part to kind of cover, the starting goalkeeper, no surprise there, a nice cheap 4.0 goalkeeper that's actually been playing for Watford, and that's going to be Ben Foster. So now I really can't tell you guys how long Ben Foster will be a playing goalkeeper for, as I don't really know how good his form has actually been since Bachmann has been out with that injury. So I can't really see a situation where Bachmann comes back from his injury and Ben Foster actually stays in goal. So unfortunately, I think Ben Foster's playing time will be short-lived, and I think he has at least one more game week potentially in his locker. The next two defenders will probably play for their respective teams, at least for the short term, and that's going to be Ben White from Arsenal and then also Brandon Williams from Norwich. So Ben White is a nice little option to go for if you guys are on a wildcard. We did cover him in a wildcard draft yesterday, so go check that video out if you guys haven't. But great option that comes in at 4.4 million, and Arsenal's fixtures do look quite good, at least for the next couple game weeks. Now the final player on the bench, and the most interesting one to cover, is actually going to be Patrick Bamford from Leeds. So you can see the top 1000 managers, at least 20% of them actually benched Bamford for Game Week 6 because obviously he was injured, and they are expecting him to come back for Game Week 7. The correct decision in my eyes, I think, as long as you could bench Bamford with a good starting 11, that was a perfectly good decision to do, as those Leeds fixtures coming up look simply outstanding. So you can see Bamford's ownership is actually about 15%, which isn't too high, to be honest. So still a little bit of a differential within the top 1000 team. And whether that was because most managers decided to transfer him out instead of keeping him is yet to be seen, unfortunately. Now moving on to the starting 11, we do have Sanchez from Brighton, the most highly owned goalkeeper, so no kind of surprise there that he is going to be the most highly owned within the top 1000. Brighton playing really well at the moment. Unfortunately, I'm recording this on Monday night before they do face Crystal Palace, so you guys can let me know in the comments down below whether you were impressed by Brighton and overall Robert Sanchez or not. Now moving on to the rest of the defense, you will actually see that the defense is super cheap, a kind of budget enablers all over the place, and the simple reason for that is that most managers will vary their budget enabler. So you'll see one player will have a Livramento and a Duffy, the next option will have a Ben White and a Brandon Williams. So the rotation between these budget enablers is quite hectic, and that's why they still have good ownership, but they're not exactly over 50% owned. There is one budget enabler that is over 50% owned, and that's going to be Livramento after securing that fullback spot at Southampton. Now Southampton have been actually defending quite well, kept Wolves to only a goal, who have been quite not a free scoring side, but have a really good kind of XG after every single game. So unfortunately for Livramento, didn't get a clean sheet in that one, but in these upcoming games, does face Chelsea in Game Week 7, but from then on, I think Southampton's fixtures do improve slightly. Duffy, another one that started as one of the 4.0 kind of playing defenders and has increased his form. Maybe tonight against Crystal Palace can get a goal or an assist, as he has actually been returning some attacking returns of the previous couple game weeks, but I think you're probably going to be relying on a clean sheet most game weeks for Duffy. The only thing with Duffy to kind of note is I don't really know when that kind of playing time is going to come to an end. I think we've been saying that he's going to be rotated from about Game Week 4, and we haven't really seen that over these next two, so maybe he's just going to continue to play over the remaining game weeks of this season. Now the final defender to talk about is going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold after conceding 3 goals to Brentford. However, I do think Brentford look like quite a strong attacking side, and overall Liverpool just making so many defensive mistakes. So I do think over the upcoming game weeks they will improve defensively, and hopefully Trent's attacking returns also can improve with them. Still a really high ownership for Trent, 85%, so probably one of the more essential defenders to own if you want to kind of cover your team according to the top 1,000 managers. Now moving on to our midfield department, and it really is kind of a power 5. We're going to start off with our double up in the midfield department with Mo Salah and Diogo Jota. Now Mo Salah, nothing much to talk about there. One of the more essential kind of premiums to own at the current moment. Some good fixtures coming up for Liverpool where you might want to captain him, and that's why I think Mo Salah will probably be in everyone's teams. He definitely is in basically every one of the top 1,000 managers. As you can see there on screen, 90% owned. So a couple of managers opting to go without him, which just shows you that it's not necessarily essential to own him, as you can still get to such a high place without the Egyptian winger. Jota on the other hand only owned by 42% of people, and I'm expecting this to drop dramatically after game week 7. The simple fact is he's going to lose his place now that Firmino is back in training, and I also think with the game week 7 fixture against Man City not looking too great for the Liverpool side of things, and Jota might be rotated in that one. This is kind of another one to keep you guys eyes on in the Champions League. If a Liverpool versus Porto, if Jota does play, he might be still featured against Man City because it means Firmino might not be recovering at the pace that Liverpool want. But if Firmino does get minutes in that fixture, I do think Klopp will opt for Firmino against Man City. Now moving on to our 3 more budget midfielders, starting off with Demarai Gray. After a little bit of a quiet week, I know I think he did get an assist against Norwich, but as an owner you probably were expecting more out of that, and I think Andros Townsend and then also Decore scored more than Demarai Gray in that fixture. I still think he's a good option in the upcoming game week simply because he is quite cheap, and I think he will continue to play when DCL and Richarlison do recover from those injuries. And that's the only thing about Townsend that I'm a little bit worried about, is that I don't know necessarily if he's going to play when Richarlison and DCL do come back from the injuries. Benrahma, another option that had a little bit of a quiet game week 6, so that's why I think most managers might take them out. Has Brentford up next, which I think will be quite a tough fixture after seeing how good Brentford were against Liverpool, but I still think West Ham at home can provide the result against them. Then going on to Ismaila Sarr, who's been a main performer in game week 5, game week 6, and I think he's going to continue that into game week 7 with a nice fixture against Leeds. A great fixture coming up with those defensive injuries that Leeds do have at the moment, and I think Ismaila Sarr, although Watford's XG isn't looking that great, I still think that he can return on the limited chances that they are getting. Definitely a high owned player within the top 1,000 managers. 53.2% of managers do own Ismaila Sarr, which just credits how well he's actually been performing in these past couple game weeks. The final 2 players to talk about in the forward department, really high owned. We have Antonio with 85% and then Ronaldo with 92%. Going to be interesting to see what managers in the top 1,000 actually do with Ronaldo, whether they're going to take him to Lukaku or whether they're going to keep faith with CR7 and maybe captain him against Everton. So there is definitely a nice template forming for the top 1,000 managers, but with the wildcards on the horizon and also some nice differentials coming up, I reckon this template is going to kind of get dissolved quite a bit, at least in game week 8 when most managers will probably have used their wildcards. So now going on to the part where I predict what transfer the top 1,000 managers do make. This is going to be quite a tough one this week because we do have those Chelsea assets that are starting that lovely run that Chelsea do have of a kind of a sea of green fixtures. And against Southampton, I think Lukaku is going to be the best caps option to actually go for. But I have not opted for that move. I've actually kept Ronaldo in this team. Although some managers might do it, I've gone for a more conservative approach, as the top 1,000 managers are usually on the conservative side of things I've actually found. So the transfer that I'm actually predicting the top 1,000 to make is going to be Diogo Jota out for Rafinha from Leeds. And the reason I've said this is that there are a couple of points. I think Jota is going to lose his place in the upcoming game weeks. Now, does that make him actually a better option? Because when he has come off the bench, actually looked like a stronger option than when he started. But I don't think that's going to be enough for him to stay in the top 1,000 template. And I think Rafinha is going to be the man that does replace him. After a relatively good run of form, he scored in both game week 5 and game week 6, rewarding 8 points to his owners in both those game weeks. And with Leeds fixtures coming up looking quite good, I think Rafinha will be the number 1 option in a midfield department that you guys should have on your horizon if you don't have him in your squad already. Other transfers that could be actually quite popular, I think a Luke Shaw out would be quite a popular transfer. But you saw in the top 1,000 template, Luke Shaw is not even on there. I think that's due to him having a bad run of form, United not keeping their clean sheets. And from an injury point of view, I think most managers will probably take Luke Shaw out if he's not going to play game week 7. But because Luke Shaw wasn't in the template, I think the transfer this week is going to be from a midfield department. That's going to be Jota out and Rafinha in. So taking that transfer into account, I kind of went and selected the best starting 11 that I think is possible with the top 1000 template at the moment. And this way you guys can do a little bit of a comparison between your own squad and this one and see if you want to go differential or maybe bring an option that the top 1000 template has to make your team a little bit more similar to this template. So starting off with the bench, I honestly think the bench kind of picks itself. Although United haven't been keeping clean sheets, I don't think you're going to favour Demarai Gray too much over one of these other midfielders or forwards. And that's why I think he's going to find his way on my bench if I was to have the top 1000 team. The other two options, Duffy, Livramento, tough fixtures from their point of view. Although you might want to double up with that Brighton defence, considering if they do keep a clean sheet against Crystal Palace, I think I'd rather keep Duffy and Livramento firmly rooted to my bench. Then the final player on the bench, Ben Foster, as I mentioned, don't really know how many game weeks he's going to actually get, but there has been a big argument if Ben Foster does start on the weekend to actually start him over a Sanchez. The reason I haven't done that is obviously I do have Rafinha and Bamford in my squad, and this is obviously going to be dependent if Bamford and Rafinha are not injured for the upcoming game week 7. So Sanchez in goal actually does have a tough fixture against Arsenal. Arsenal on kind of a good run of form. I think I've got 3 wins in the last 3, and the big win obviously coming on Sunday evening when they did face their North London rivals Tottenham and managing to win that game 3-1. So that's going to be confidence for them. Although Brighton are quite a good attacking side, usually get quite a high XG. I'm actually hoping for a boring 0-0 draw as I am starting Sanchez and White in my defense. Then going on to Trent, although he has a tough game against Man City, I do still think that Liverpool could get something out of this game, whether it be from a defensive or an attacking point of view. Liverpool-Man City usually doesn't live up to the hype, and it can be quite a boring 0-0 to be honest. And that's why Trent could get some attacking returns, but I think the defensive returns could also be there for this fixture. The final defender to talk about is going to be Brandon Williams. Now I know you're probably thinking, why on earth are you starting a Norwich defender? But unfortunately, he does have Burnley, and I mean, that's not the worst fixture in the world. I don't think Norwich will keep a clean sheet, but maybe Brandon Williams has a better chance of keeping a clean sheet than Livramento or Duffy. He is also playing as a fullback, so maybe there could be some attacking returns, but honestly, I'm not expecting much from him, and I'm simply just playing him because of that fixture. Now, midfield department, besides Mo Salah, has some really good fixtures coming up. We have Rafinha against Watford at home, which I do think is going to be quite a high scoring game, and that's why I also have Ismail Assar here against that Leeds side that have so many defensive injuries at the moment. Now, as I said, I'm hoping for absolute goals galore here as Rafinha, Bamford and Sarr all have the same fixture, and I don't think it's that kind of out the question that it will be, but usually when it looks like it's going to be quite a high scoring game, it usually ends up being quite a boring one, but hopefully not for the sake of the top 1000 template. Mo Salah against Man City, kind of spoke about it from a trend point of view. Usually can be quite a boring game, but I mean, it is at Anfield. Maybe Liverpool can score in this one, and if they do score, probably going to be Mo Salah on the receiving end of an assist or a goal. Ben Rama, our final midfielder to talk about against Brentford. Now, this Brentford side can be super good defensively, but they can also be quite open, as we saw with Liverpool. And I think this game might be quite a cagey one, to be honest. And that's why I don't have that many hopes for Ben Rama or Antonio. And I guess that's why I'm not really looking at Antonio from a Campsy point of view. But still, great fixture for them, and definitely there could be some potential. And if West Ham do score, you've got to be favouring Ben Rama or Antonio to be on the receiving end of an assist or a goal. Now, Bamford, I've kind of touched on him according to game week 7 in terms of that Watford fixture at home. Now, you guys just have to keep your eyes on that press conference coming up on Thursday or Friday to actually know if Bamford's going to be fine to play, because he did have this injury in game week 6 that actually kept him out for the entire game week 6. So it looks like it might be a little bit more serious than was initially anticipated, and that's why I'm a little bit worried about Bamford, but hopefully we do get more news on him come that game week 7 deadline. Now, the final play to talk about is going to be CR7, Cristiano Ronaldo. United do face Everton at home, and after coming off that Aston Villa loss, going to look to kind of rebound off that. I will also be looking at the Champions League game against Villarreal. I think they do play on Wednesday, so just keep your guys' eyes on that one. Probably will be the captain this week just because the fixtures don't look entirely great, and I can't really trust these cheaper options. If it was to go differential, probably would look at maybe someone like an Ismail Assar or Rafinha, or maybe a Bamford if he manages to recover from that injury. But on paper, I think Ronaldo will be the captain of the top 1000 team, and if most managers don't take him to Lukaku, I think his ownership will be quite high within these ranks. But the last talking point I wanted to just cover is, do I think the top 1000 template will wildcard in game week 7 or game week 8? And I thought that I would just kind of talk about this because it is kind of a wildcard week. A lot of managers are either going to wildcard in game week 7 or game week 8. You guys would have seen that I did do a wildcard draft yesterday, so go check that out if you guys haven't. But in terms of the top 1000 template, do I think they'll wildcard in game week 7? No, I don't. I think the fixtures still look quite strong for game week 7's point of view. You would have seen in the team selection prior to this that the fixtures do look great, and the team actually doesn't look that that bad from that point of view. So that's why I think game week 8 will definitely be when the wildcard is brought out for the top 1000 template. And the reason for that is that Ismaila Sarr's fixtures do turn. We also have some other fixtures for a CR7. Maybe we want to change him to a Lukaku. And I think overall the defense will be shifted more to the blue side of things, with those Chelsea defenders like Alonso and Rudiger being brought in at quite a high pace. So my prediction is that the top 1000 managers do wildcard in game week 8, not game week 7. And it's going to be quite interesting to see how the template kind of shakes up after game week 8 does conclude. But this is basically wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for a ton of content still coming up this midweek, so make sure those bell notifications are turned on for this channel, or just simply follow me on Twitter. I always do tweet when I do release a video, so hopefully I do see you guys in the videos remaining this week. I'll be signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.